Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Marketer podcast. It's Richard here. So glad to have you and joined by Kylie. Hi, Kylie.
Hey there.
And today we're going to start to make some shifts with the podcast. And we wanted to share a little bit about some of the ideas that we've been thinking through. And one of them is just we really want to take this podcast, the Conscious Marketer podcast, so that it's one of the best resources for somebody who wanted to learn marketing, and we want it to be a recommended podcast, and we want to kind of take it from just being out there, and we're nearing our 100th episode, and so this has kind of spurred our desire to ask, okay, is it achieving what we wanted to achieve, and how can we actually make it like one of the great marketing podcasts of all time? And that's a very different question than when we first started, which is how do we create a podcast that people will like, and so there's this idea of kind of upping our own game. So Kylie, we've just thought we would talk a little bit about our thinking and just kind of share with you what we're thinking about the podcast, where it's going to go, but also how you can apply this specifically to whatever project you're working on, whether it's your business or your relationship or your health. Because really this mentality of going from just being in the game to, going to a much higher level of execution and professionalism, I think it's where we all want to go. But first you have to get in the game, and then you have to, once you're in the game, you have to say, okay, this is something I really want, and then let's go do it. I know, Kylie, this is almost our 100th episode. That feels amazing, doesn't it?
It's exciting. And we've had such incredible voices to amplify on here that may or may not have been heard of. I feel like we've really featured the hidden gems of the industry.
Yeah. And that's been an amazing thing, is to pull in people who are doing conscious marketing and conscious business and kind of out there, in niches that often on podcasts. And I would say a lot of the traditional marketing podcasts, they don't get a lot of airtime, so it's been nice to feature those people. Yeah. So I think one of the main concepts here is just, there is definitely a get in the game. So if you're working on your online business, if you're working on your marketing, if you're a therapist or a healer, or, even if you have a product or whatever you're marketing, it's a lot just to get in the game. And what's interesting is most people don't even get in the game. So you have to kind of give yourself a pat on the back for that. And then as you get in the game, what you will see is that you have a vision of where you want to go. And often, it takes a lot just to show up. I know for myself, the thing that I've been really shifting within my own kind of way I approach every day is to look at whatever area it is. The area that I've been focusing a lot on is building systems in my business. And which includes bringing people in and how we onboard people, and looking a lot at that, because I know that we have a lot of room for improvement. And then for my own health, I've been kind of working toward a big fitness challenge. And it's one of these, this challenge I'm doing is one of these things that there's no real training that you can do for it. You have to get fit, but they're going to be kind of throwing everything in the kitchen sink at me. So I have to kind of think every day, and I show up into the gym, or early morning I'm out running or rucking with weights on my back. And I'm always asking, okay, what can I do today that's super hard, that might make me uncomfortable, or that they might throw at me at this event, so that when they throw it at me, I'm going to be yeah, I've already done that, no problem. Or even just so that when they throw something at me that I don't know, I'm okay, I've thrown so many different things at me. I've walked with 50 pounds. I've run 15 miles. I've carried a kettlebell over my head and stood there, and I've gone to the downward squat position and held that for 5 minutes. And, I've the number of things I've tried, because I know that I have an idea of some of the things they're going to throw at me. But it's really interesting, because what's happened is it's shifted this mentality. And there's this goal of completing this event, or this is goal of having one of the top marketing podcasts in the world. But every day I wake up and it collapses down. The goal collapses down to the day, because I can only control that day or that moment or that choice. And so it's such an interesting shift for me, because I think in the past I'd be like, okay, what's the 2-month plan or the 1-year plan? And I'm not against planning, but it's collapsed down to the day. And my mentality has really been about, how do I push that day? And also like checking in, like, where am I at? Like, what's my capacity that day? So if I'm working on, documenting a system or hiring somebody, or if I need to do an outreach, like, what's my capacity that day to do that? Or in fitness, it might be, if I worked one part of the body yesterday, what part could I work today? Or do I need to actually just rest today? And every day it changes, but every day I can make a choice to push, and not push so much in, it's actually not push, but it's almost like allow my real capacity and my real potential to come out. And that perspective has changed me for the better, I think. And it's so interesting because of that area in my fitness life, I started to do that. I started to look at all the different things in my business, and I was like, okay, well, look, okay, we're up nearing our 100th episode. How do we push the podcast so that it could be like a top 10 podcast? What would that look like? Like, what format do we change? Do we change the name? How do we change the branding? Do we need to advertise more? What mix of guests do we change? So just by asking that question, and now, like, even this podcast, you're listening to this podcast, so I'm just sharing what's going on behind the scenes. But our intention is, you're going to start to see these small, subtle shifts, because we want to make this one of the best podcasts in the world. And we want it to be a podcast where somebody goes, oh, if you really are into marketing, or you want to grow your business, or maybe you have a struggle with marketing, listen to this podcast, because Richard and Kylie share all kinds of great information, and their guests are extraordinary, or they're, we want to be able to hear somebody recommending the podcast and why they do it, and we want to create the culture and the environment. So we're creating a podcast that people recommend, and so it's just natural. And so that's kind of where we're starting to head down. I don't know. I'm going to pass it over to you, Kylie, because I've had so much fun in the past 6 months with this idea, but it's really kind of entrenched. It's kind of entrenched in my soul now, and it's really helped me to. I just think it's kind of like rethink goal setting, and to like winning it each day has become so much more important to me. And then focusing on the 1 or 2 areas that I know that I really had to have the potential to grow and become something better.
So I love what you just said. And I think that one of the things you and I have in common is we come from a really spiritual background, and we've had a lot of incredible spiritual mentors, but there's also a convergence of that warrior archetype where you're walking around with a 50-pound rucksack and you're about to do this event that could qualify you as being a Navy SEAL, and you're not in your 20s either. And that's when most people are doing that event, right? Because the SEALs are usually in their 20s. Maybe by the time they're 30, it's like over for them. I'm not exactly sure. That's kind of what it is in the NBA. So I'm guessing that's what it is in the SEALs. But looking at everything that you're saying and bringing like power and grace and transformation into everything that we're doing, I also think it's so important to look at why. Like, why are we doing all the things that we're doing? And I think that for everybody out there listening, when you're working really, really hard towards a goal, the one thing that will always get you through the ups and downs is hooking into your why, and always remember why you're doing what you're doing. And I think one of the reasons that you and I work so well together is we both have that fighting spirit for what we truly believe in, and we will get through those ups and downs, and we're always optimizing. And for me personally, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I've always felt that my responsibility, and this is looking at like Jungian archetypes, I always believed that my purpose was to bring the warrior energy to the alchemists, because there's just so many magical people out there with so many solutions to ocean plastic or climate change, or, organic food versus conventional food, or hands-on healing work, or working with, I know some people that do ayahuasca ceremonies with CEOs to try to soften their hearts and to help them make better and different decisions. And without that warrior energy there, nothing is ever going to get done. So I love how we bring that to our audience. And I would love to see us obviously bring that more into the podcast, talk about more personal things. I know you mentioned like There's some psychedelic things that we could talk about, or get a little more Joe Rogan if you like him, or I don't really like him that much, but whatever, just like bringing out some more of that type of content. Because right now, last we got our stats, we have about 38,000 listeners, which is awesome for the 100th episode. But I'd like to carry this message out to millions of people. I know there's a lot of people out there who really need the medicine of bringing power into spirit. And it's not only just like something that I'm passionate about, because I am, but it's also something that the world really needs. We're at such a critical tipping point. And I know that that's cliche and everybody talks about it. But everybody talks about it because it's true. And everything that we're bringing into the world, whether it's our paid program, our upcoming list building summer camp, our Source Mastermind, our membership community, the Soul Syndicate, everything that we're doing is to bring more activity, more power, more strength into the spiritual activities that our clients are doing. And I think that motivates me to, you're talking about working really hard towards our goals. That's what motivates me. That's my number one motivation in waking up in the morning and climbing the insurmountable hills. And, every hill I climb, then there's a bigger one and a bigger one, but we get that motivation by accomplishing one thing. And so it is imperfect. And there's a lot behind the scenes that people will never know that we go through and that we do to push all these projects out. But just everybody listening, I so encourage you to always, always connect with your why. I even tell people, write down your why and stick it by your laptop. And then those days where you're like, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with people. I don't want to do this anymore. You look at your why and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like, this is cool. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's so good. And also, I think you can have more than one why too. Like you can do it for the ocean, and you can do it because you want to buy a house, and you can do it because you want to help your clients. And so I think that, this idea of why has been, it's like one of these memes, that goes around and you hear it. And kind of like Kylie said, I think it's super powerful to keep it fresh and in your mind, and to realize you probably have more than one why for a lot of the things you do. And I think that's a good thing. And I think like a multidimensional why is okay. You could do it because you want to prove somebody wrong, and because you want to make your kid proud of you, and because you want to donate to a charity. And I think it's more like, you can have your big why. I realized that with some of the things that I'm doing, that one of my big whys is, I really want to feel that I've achieved the full potential that I have this lifetime, and with the work I've been doing. And in the past, there's been a few times where I think I've stopped a little short, and I don't want to do that with anything else that like I'm 50, I want to make a go of everything, so whether it's this podcast or the book or the clients I'm working with, I want to like give it everything, that make the transformation. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday actually, and she has somebody that just had a stroke, and she has another person that just got put in the rehab. And she's like, like a lot of the stuff that we're doing to help people market their things, like therapists and healers, it's literally like saving people's lives, And so when I hear that, I think I'm even more motivated to get up early and to get more fit. I'm even more motivated to have a 2 or 3 hour session in front of a computer and struggle with that chapter, because I know that if somebody reads it, they're going to maybe do the YouTube video or send an email out to their list. And then that person that might be on the edge is going to reach out to them and get the help. And a lot of you out there listening to this have the game is, the stakes are that high in a lot of cases, because you're working with high risk people or providing services and products that heal people at deep levels. And even if you're, it's not to say that if you're, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a teacher, you could be running a normal business, serving coffee. That's like my dream, is to have a coffee house somewhere, and you can be providing inspiration and cheer and be the safe place where people come to feel at home, so I think we sometimes get mystified by the great meditation teachers, but often it's the people we meet along our path every day in the road, and that make the difference in our day-to-day life experiences. And then secondly, this warrior thing I think is really important. And, in copywriting and in, there's an archetype that this is probably like Kylie, well, like the wounded healer or the reluctant healer, but there's also the reluctant leader and this person who doesn't want to do marketing and kind of is hiding a little bit. And there's a point where you just say enough's enough, like let's go for it. And how do I move toward it? And this is where I think it helps kind of full circle back, where if you have this big goal, it's like it could be so overwhelming, this vision you have or where you want to go, but to collapse it down into the day and go, okay, like let's just take the book thing. If I want to write a book, like what if I just wrote 500 words today? And that was the hard thing I did today and got it started. So there's no right place to start, but every day, every hour, you have a choice to whether you want to lean into that warrior inside you or that sometimes I like the idea of the reluctant king or queen inside, because there's it's almost like a spiritual power. It's like you're merging the spiritual and the warrior energy to get things done in this world. And so I think that attitude, that stance in life to every day to go, how do I move things forward to make my life great, to be the greatest at whatever I'm choosing to do in the moment. I think if we all did that, our world would change. And I don't think many people choose that. I think it's actually quite rare,
Everybody stop what you're doing and go listen to David Goggins' audiobook. You'll get the motivation. And anyways, I love what you're talking about the reluctant hero and the reluctant warrior king and queen and royal king and queen and things like that. I remember my most pivotal moment in moving from the wounded healer and the reluctant healer and somebody who hated business and marketing, and I would have fallen off my chair laughing if you ever told me I would get into it as a career. I was a massage therapist. I was trying to heal people. I was charging like $30 to $40 an hour for body work. It was terrible. And I was super poor and struggling. But one day for a job that I got as a content creator, which was my first toe into this big ocean of internet marketing, I had an opportunity to interview Mark Victor Hansen. For those of you who are not familiar, he's the chicken soup for the soul guy. And I remember doing that interview, and one of the things he told me was, Kylie, I've sold 500 million books, and before I die, I'm going to sell 1 billion. And I'm also going to help eradicate world hunger. In my lifetime, world hunger is going to be gone. And these are really audacious things to say. He said it with so much conviction, so much belief in himself and his ability to influence for good, that it changed my life. Like right in that moment, I was like, oh my God, business can be some of the most powerful mechanisms and methods that we can use to solve some of the biggest global problems. And this guy is doing it full on, and I'm going to follow in his footsteps. I'm going to do my mission and my vision, which is really changing the global story and helping buried wisdom come back up to the surface, which is why I help all of you that are listening, because you have a little piece of that story and that wisdom that needs to come back out now. And I really believe in that. But it wasn't until I had that conversation with him that I really saw the potential of marketing and business as a force for good. And that was 12 years ago. And honestly, I've never looked back. I've worked really, really hard to get where I am and to impact probably tens of thousands of people at this point personally, and millions of people through my ad copy, which is pretty cool. And really to just inspire you that you can do that too. Some of you only want to influence 5 or 10 or 100 people, but if you're in the same camp as me and you want to really make a dent in the collective psyche, it's entirely possible for you. And as Richard always says, marketing is the spiritual practice that's going to get you there.
It's definitely part of the spiritual practice. It's definitely when people start to move their things online, they face all the fears and demons, and it's an expression. And as you work through your stuff and start to serve, you realize that marketing and selling is just you're serving, and a lot of times you're serving from people who aren't even going to be customers sometimes. So it's actually a very selfless service. And if you can find ways to add value in advance, it's a very powerful medium. That's why we do what we do. So one of the reasons we do what we do. Well, I hope there's been some ideas on this podcast that have helped you. Like for me, this idea of collapsing down your goal to the day and saying, how do I make whatever I'm doing great, and how do I move it forward toward a higher level today? What am I going to do today? Not tomorrow, not an idea in the head, but like, if you think of the idea, just implement it, like take massive action. And as you start to do that on a daily basis, watch things change. And as you string together weeks and days, and you're going to miss days, that's okay. Your business is going to start to grow because you're doing the work that everybody who chooses to be great does. That the person who, whatever, they're the great meditator or basketball player or school teacher, every day they have to make a decision to up their game and to do sometimes the things that others don't want to do, and that's what makes them great. So, and the beautiful thing is you can do that in whatever area of your life you choose. And so just why not make that choice? And so we were just encourage you to do that and make your marketing great. I think it's, I don't want to sound like kind of weird, but like your marketing can be awesome. Your marketing can be something that you're proud of. Your marketing can be something that doesn't make you feel weird and icky. It can get to the point where you really look forward to getting comments, getting your stuff online, and getting the feedback. And because as you start to do that, you'll build a following that wants to hear from you on a regular basis. And when you realize that, the whole game changes. And then you can kind of lead your own movement. Your company will start to grow. You'll start to get referrals. And so it's those small steps that lead to that bigger promise there.
I think it's very fun, and I think this is the direction that we're going to be moving in more, is just having more raw, more honest conversations. Not that we weren't before, but I think it's super important for you to see behind the scenes of what's really happening here and what it really takes to do what we do, and really to give you the tools and the strength and the inspiration to climb those mountains that you're here to climb. And then, the horizon is ever expanding, and we may never get there, but the higher we set the vision, the higher we're going to get. And I really believe in you, and I'm really inspired by all of you who are listening here. And of course, we welcome your comments. If you love what you're hearing, we would also super appreciate a rating, a comment on iTunes or Spotify, a comment on our blog post that we send out via email that we send out for these episodes. We would always love to hear from you if you're enjoying this, if it's helping you, if there's any value here for you. We want to know for sure. And we want to cater the content to what our avid listeners are really looking for in this show.
Yeah, that's so well said, Kylie. Thank you. Thanks to the listeners. And again, you can go to consciousmarketer.com/podcast. That's where we house all the episodes, this one and the show notes. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this ongoing evolution that we're going through. We're super excited about the future of this podcast. So thanks for being a listener, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.